Okay, so just having to understand what kind of voice is here. Just having to understand what kind of voice. ओके सो आज का सेशन बहुत अमेजिंग होने वाला है। आज हम सेशन में थोड़ा सा समझेंगे कि किस तरह से हम ऐसी बाउंड्री सेट करें जो सच में काम करती हैं। सबसे पहले समझना इंपॉर्टेंट है कि बाउंड्रीज आखिर होती क्या हैं, क्यों हमें बाउंड्री सेट करनी है। आज का सेशन हो सकता है थोड़ा सा लंबा चले, बट हम कुछ नया सीखेंगे, कुछ अमेजिंग सीखेंगे। मैंने बहुत एक्सटेंसिव रिसर्च की है पूरे टॉपिक्स पे, अलग अलग जगह से मैंने चीज़ें निकाल कर फिर उन चीज़ों को एक जगह पर डालकर मैंने किया। और मैं कोशिश यही करूँगा कि ये सेशन बिल्कुल एकदम कट थ्रॉट स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड सेंस में रहे, ताकि हम वो चीज़ें यहाँ से निकाल सकें जो हमें अमेजिंगली यहाँ से निकालनी चाहिए। तो पूरे सेशन को मैंने 6 पार्ट्स में डिवाइड किया। सबसे पहले हम समझेंगे कि बाउंड्रीज होती क्या है और क्यों वो इम्पोर्टेंट है। फिर हम समझेंगे किस तरह की बाउंड्रीज होती हैं, चैलेंजेस क्या आते हैं बाउंड्रीज को सेट करते वक्त, और किस तरह से हम बाउंड्रीज को सेट करें और मेंटेन करें इन हेल्दी बाउंड्रीज को। और फिर हम कुछ स्पेसिफिक सिचुएशंस को मद्देनज़र रखते हुए उनके बारे में कुछ बात करेंगे, और कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस हम चेक करेंगे कि क्या कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस हो सकते हैं बाउंड्री सेट करने के। तो सबसे पहले समझते हैं कि आखिर बाउंड्रीज होती क्या हैं और वो क्यों इतनी इंपॉर्टेंट है। तो बाउंड्रीज की डेफिनेशन कुछ अलग अलग तरीके से हो सकती है, पर अगर हम इसको समझें बहुत ही सिंपल वे में, तो हम यहाँ पर समझ सकते हैं कि बाउंड्रीज क्या है। ऐसी इनविजिबल लाइंस है जो आप डिफाइन करते हैं अपने एजेस को मेंटेन करने के लिए। तो इस डेफिनेशन के साथ हम यहाँ पर चलेंगे आगे। तो पर्पस क्या होता है? पर्पस इसके मल्टीफोल्ड पर्पस है। सबसे पहला है प्रोटेक्शन और सेल्फ प्रिजर्वेशन, कि बाउंड्रीज क्या कर रही हैं, बाउंड्रीज प्रोटेक्ट कर रही हैं आपका टाइम, एनर्जी, बॉडी और आपके बाकी के रिसोर्सेज, ताकि आप कुछ वो चीज़ें कर पाए जो आपके लिए जेन्युइनली बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है। अब ना करना एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट टर्म है। ना saying no is a complete sentence, and many a times we are not aware whether to say no or not. So these boundaries most occasionally help us with those kind of dealings. So first point is protection and self-preservation. Secondly, they help us preventing the negative outcomes which could happen to us if boundaries are not being set. So what could be those? Sometimes because we are not setting the healthy boundaries amongst our friends, family, colleagues, even in our relationships with our spouse or other person as well. So what happens? We are overwhelmed, we are stuck, we are trapped in a situation, and mostly many times negative outcomes are there for us, and people try to take advantages of us, and that is what is something very wrong of them. So yes, this thing can be prevented too. Next is related to clarity and self identity. So boundaries are most important because they enable us to recognize and honor our own needs, feelings and desires. So everyone has a desire to fulfill or not, so these boundaries are for us to fulfill those desires. And many a times we have seen in our lives as well that most people in our lives, they are there to take numerous advantages of us, and here comes the role of boundaries. I'm not saying to say no to everything and anything, but I am saying to understand those things which are really required in our life, and those things which are not at all required in our life. So first of all, we need to identify those two things, and accordingly we have to make choices whether to go ahead with which one, so that the boundary and clarity is much relevant and understandable. Actually, people think that setting boundaries will not nurture their relationship, but ruin their relationship. But vice versa is true. Clear boundaries are essential for good relationship and personal well-being. Over the years, I have seen so many relationships in different perspectives of people, and what happens, those who are having the healthy relationships, they were the ones who have set normal boundaries. We by setting boundaries, I don't want you to just take a piece of paper and write it down everything. No, that kind of boundaries are not required. But yes, in a subtle way, or in sometimes in a straightforward way, we need to convince other people that these boundaries are there, and these are to be maintained for the betterment of this relationship. Last but not the least, these boundaries also help us to empower ourselves so that we can work accordingly. So this is why this was important. And coming to the next thing, which is related to the types of boundaries. So there could be many types of boundaries, and I have also taken some examples of violations of these boundaries. So first boundary is related to time and energy boundary. Many a times, most of our friends also nowadays, it has become a very prominent, joyful, uh, taken for granted thing, that we have to say yes to everything and anything. If even if your friend is disguised in a uh, thing which is not required, so just for the sake of maintaining that balance, just for the sake of maintaining a relationship, or maintaining that a group is amongst those friends, we have to say yes to many things which are not required in your life, and which are not permissible in your principle and value system as well. So what we can do is, we have to identify, and we have to settle those boundaries every time, which are related to our principles and our value systems. These principles and value systems could be related to our moral values, could be related to the cultural and social values in which we have came from, or the families or lineage in which we have came from, or it could be related to the spiritual values from which we are deriving, either from some scriptures or from some spiritual views. So those kind of boundaries are very important to be maintained. Next thing is about the emotional boundaries. So emotional, most of the time we have seen that many people have this habit of emotional dumping. What they do is, they just have so many stories about their life, and they are so fed up about many things in their life, or even they have just the a simple habit of gossiping and other thing. So what they do, they dump their emotions to other person without the other person wanting those emotions to be dumped on. So these things are very inappropriate, and it creates a non-requirement of the baggage, emotional baggage on the person, and we have to set the emotional boundaries as well. Next is the physical boundaries. So physical boundaries are related to, this is very important nowadays, because POSCO effect and many other effect have maintained that most of the colleagues in a cultural and corporate background, they would be very happily seen that these boundaries are to be maintained. So personal space, touch and eye contact, so these are related to the physical boundaries. Someone standing too close, someone just touching without your being affection, public displays of affection, even from your loved one as well. So those boundaries are to be maintained, and those boundaries are to be taken care of as well. Then comes the mental or cognitive boundaries. So what are these? These are basically related to the boundaries or the free will of your own thoughts, of your value systems, of your opinions, of your beliefs, without the judgment of other people. Let me take an example for this. For example, in a setup of a small company, or in a small setup, sometimes what happens that your senior, or not in senior of your age, but senior of your designation. So sometimes what the people do, they just put their belief system or their value system on us without us wanting those things in our life. So those boundaries are to be taken care of. How these boundaries are to be instilled on other people, that I will be taking in further next. But this is very important to understand, at least, that these are the boundaries which are to be taken care of, so that we are happily moving ahead in our life. So next is the time for material boundaries. So material boundaries are related to sometimes we have a friend, like in college, in our college days, there was a friend of mine, and he was very fond of so many things from different uh, classmates of his. So he used to take those things without even them knowing, or so that was not required. That is something which has to be taken care of. Sometimes uh, it looks okay, but every time it is very pathetic situation, so those boundaries are to be maintained. So these are material boundaries. Next comes to the sexual boundaries. So sexual boundaries are also important, because even if you are maintaining a relationship with your own partner, so without their being in those intimate moments, you just forcing them, your sexual drive is not required. So these sexual boundaries are also very much required. Now comes the professional and workspace boundaries. So these are very important. Sometimes we just understand these in the form of sexual boundaries, but that is not the case. So it is related to clear working hours, communication preference, whether you want to be communicated by a mobile phone or a text message. Even you can maintain a preferred feedback style also. Social interactions, if you want to avoid gossiping or declining after work drinks, so that is all is into your professional and workplace boundaries. So that is also a very relevant thing to do. Next is the relationship boundaries. So sometimes what we have so many friends in our life, and when they want that relationship to be outcome to us, so those boundaries are also to be maintained in a very proper and appropriate way. So guys, this was the types of boundaries we discussed. In the next session, in the next live, whenever we will be sitting around, we would be discussing about how these boundaries are to be taken care of, how we have to nurture those things, and what sort of implications could we have after not just promising of these boundaries. So thank you so much for being with us, and I'm hopeful that you are liking these sessions. These sessions are also very new to me, so I'm also trying my level best for researching these topics, and researching very deeply about these topics and providing you something very relevant. There might be some problem in my communicating these things directly in a form of a story or a different perspectives, but let me be with you. I'll try my level best for helping you guys with these sort of topics which could be inclined you for your careers, for your jobs, for your business perspectives, and productivity hacks, and so many other things which are related to your value system, belief system, and support system. So thank you so much for being here, and it was always a pleasure to be live on this platform. Thank you so much, guys.